Welcome back, panelists here. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale, former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, Matthew Continetti of the American Enterprise Institute, and Mariana Sotomayor of the Washington Post. So with Donald Trump, we've been here a million times. It started with attacking John McCain. And we go down the line, and you have Access Hollywood tape, and you think, boy, this is the one. No, this is the one. No, this is the one. Matthew, let me start with you. Is this the one? Is this week the one?
No. There's been so much smoke from these smoking guns over 6 years that it clouds your eyes. And I think there are some questions about the testimony of Ms. Hutchinson. I think it's still a long way from her testimony to getting Merrick Garland to file charges against a former president of the United States. So while I think this is a reminder to the country of Donald Trump's irresponsible and impeachable actions after the election of 2020, I don't think it's a smoking gun.
Isn't there so much space between those two things, like getting the DOJ to file and anything changing for Trump? There's so much space between those things. And I think that when you see people like the Washington Examiner coming out and saying that he shouldn't be president again, I mean, there are metrics that are changing. And it was always true during the Trump years that Republicans were always more comfortable saying privately in our text messages than they were on television that this was a very, very bad thing. But I think that you're sort of getting to a point where you almost can't avoid saying that when the thing in dispute here is like grabbing at a steering wheel, but the thing that's not in dispute is the fact that he wanted to go to the Capitol and lead the rioters.
Mariana, have you heard from Republicans quietly like, oh, all right, I'm out, or not yet?
Oh, no. I mean, I was texting a couple of aides who work for lawmakers who are still very close to Trump, and everyone is pushing it aside. They were, before even Trump said on his social media platform, you know, Cassidy Hutchinson, none of this is true. Yeah. She is an outsider to us. These aides were already saying that. They all say that this is not going to play a role in the midterms. No one's paying attention to this. If you ask them about 24, though, and what this means for Trump potentially running, that's when they start to get a little squeamish. But
it's easier for them to say that.
Correct.
Jay?
I have to begin with this. While a lot of men are hiding under their desk in lawyers' offices, this hearing has really been a profiling courage among women. Caroline Edwards, Cass Hutchinson, and Liz Cheney. I think that this hearing has been choreographed exceptionally well for the attention span of the average American in 2022. I see a case being developed of the criminal charges that Danny laid out, plus giving aid and comfort to an insurrection. What happened on January 6th was the very definition of an insurrection. I'm concerned, as the former federal prosecutor in me, that gets you a lot of cred these days on television. I'm concerned that the committee may have overreached on the incident in the vehicle. It was colorful, it was vivid, it was collateral to the central charge. And it was secondhand hearsay.
Well, let me pause you there, because it's funny you say that, because the fact that the former president is obsessing over the incident and nothing else of the testimony, I think speaks volumes. Take a listen to how he's characterizing this.
This lady yesterday, there's something wrong with her? Is there something wrong? She said, I jumped from a car and I started strangling. Think of this. I started strangling a Secret Service agent who I know very well. I grabbed the steering wheel of a car that said that I wanted guns at my rally. I didn't want guns. I have to speak too, and I don't want guns for anybody.
Did you grab the steering wheel? Is there any truth to that?
Of course not.
What's fascinating is that they try to find, what Trump's always been good at is finding a specific he thinks he can deny to try to cast doubt on everything.
Here's why I would have hesitated on that. If Ali Vitale tells me that Mariana told her, that Matt told Mariana, that Chuck Todd hit him, I would want to know exactly what Matt has to say about that incident firsthand.
I'd be willing to testify.
All right, it's good to know. Under oath?
Under oath, a federal law enforcement officer under oath. So the committee perhaps knows something that the rest of us don't know, but before I went out with the secondhand hearsay, which is going to get a lot of attention, I'd want to know what the firsthand witness has to say. Or
I think by the time she told us the story, it was technically we're in our third version of it's a third-hand account.
It depends on how you interpret hearsay, but you know that testimony would not have been admissible in a courtroom, and as you know, Secret Service agents don't normally talk about what they see, what they hear from their protectees. I was a protectee of the Secret Service for 3 years, and they have to be in a position to hear and see all kinds of very sensitive things.
But look, lawmakers were briefed late on what the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony was going to be. Like the rank and file of the committee were briefed late on this. There was some discussion among them, I'm told, on whether or not this key detail should have been included, and that now they're at a point where this is out there, right? And we know that people like the vice chair of the committee, Liz Cheney, have really wanted to push the envelope of what the committee includes. This is obviously one of those headline-grabbing details, but I do think that it's fair to wonder whether or not her testimony would have been as shocking as it was, and I would argue that it would have been, even if you didn't have just those few details of what happened in the limo, because again, and I think this is where the committee continues to come down on it, is they don't want you to miss the forest from the trees on this.
You know, they could have shared the same incident and not with that detail, that he was irate, that he kept urging, and the Secret Service had to tell him, no. It's the same allegation.
The bottom line is this hearing in particular, but all of the J6 committee hearings have riveted the Beltway. And the question is it getting beyond the Beltway? And when you look at Republican Party voters, they are slowly less enthusiastic about Donald Trump in 2024.
Well, isn't that a sign that it's working?
I think that's more a function of time and looking for something new than it is all of these salacious details coming from the committee.
But Mariana, I think you hit on something. It is easier to criticize Trump as it's a bad idea for you to run again than it is to have to directly deal with this, right?
Exactly, yes. And, you know, a lot of aides right now are kind of wondering when, if Trump decides to run, when does he want to announce? And they don't want him to talk
Whenever
about...
the indictment comes down, right?
Well, they don't want him to talk about this at any point in time ahead of the midterms because he is such a liability. He's such an unknown. Republicans are on the path to take back the majority in the House. It's possible they do it in the Senate. They don't want a random announcement by Trump because he can be a liability to a lot of swing voters.
The irony is that if the Republicans fail, wherever they fail, it's all Donald Trump's fault, either directly or indirectly. Either how, Matthew, he got involved in primaries for bad candidates. You could argue Roe v. Wade in an indirect way. And obviously January 6th. Like, the but-for paragraph on the day after the election, if Republicans have a disappointing night, is all going to be Trump, right?
Think about the Georgia special elections for the Senate on January 5th, by 2021, right? Donald Trump is not a political winner for the Republican Party, and yet many Republicans don't seem able to accept that fact.
I'm very curious, this little dispute between the committee and Justice.
Yeah.
If Justice was surprised by Cassidy Hutchinson, to me that sounds like Justice isn't really pursuing the West Wing yet.
Well, the dispute between Congress and the Department of Justice is not new. Any incident that is investigated by both branches, there's always a fight about who gets to go first, whether or not the committee has to turn over all the testimony and so forth. If, in fact, the Department of Justice didn't know what Cass Hutchinson was going to say, that suggests that they're not focused on this.
They got a long way to go, don't
or
they?
They have a long way to go.
Also makes sense why they want the committee's transcripts, right?
But
sure, but as Zoe Lofgren said, they have a lot more powerful subpoenas.
They're focused now. I'm certain they are focused now.
That's probably a fair point. All right, we're going to pause there.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.